tuning into Roll Call. The movie you selected is Collateral Beauty, starring Will Smith.
Well, hey everyone, welcome to Roll Call, the show where two childless millennials gush over movies and follow an actor's journey from their early years throughout their blockbuster hits.
Because, let's face it,
out of the three, Blockbuster's love, baby.
But it ran out of time. Moment of silence for Blockbuster, please. All right, we're back.
Okay.
What's up, everybody? I am Bria, and yes, what else are we going to talk about today? But nothing but love, time, and death, which have sent me in a spiral. So let's do this.
Truly, and I don't know if the spiral's the same that I had after 7 pounds, but hey everyone, I'm Simone, and this is about to get some real Dickens Ghost of Christmas Past shit.
Yes, I had that note too. I'm glad we're on the same page.
Dish. So what are we talking about today?
In today's episode, we're talking about Will Smith in the 2016 fantasy drama Collateral Beauty. So let's take a trip back to December of 2016. Christmas, love it. And talk about some pop cultures. So lots of really relevant stuff happened in 2016 because it wasn't that long ago, but it is kind of that long ago because it's like 7 years ago.
Ugh, I know. Well, this December it will be 6 years ago.
Oh, okay, 6 years ago. My bad. Yes.
Yeah. 6 plus 6 equals 12. That's a 2. Okay, got it.
I'm already in 2013. Or not 2013.
23.
See, it's Friday. It's been a long week. Like I told Simone, Mercury is in retrograde. So, and then clearly this movie fucked us up. So we're getting through this. Anyways, all right, 2016. Let's talk about it. Well, something that still got us in a chokehold began its infancy. Stranger Things came out in 2016. Yeah. I didn't realize it was like that, like kind of long ago, but also very close. It's a weird distance in time, I feel like.
Yes, I agree.
Another thing on TV that has people in a chokehold, This Is Us, which I feel like is relevant.
Do you watch that show?
No, I tried to, and I tried to on purpose because I know it fucks people up, and people are like, "Oh, this episode of This Is Us, whew, man." Yeah. And so I had one of my moments of like, I need to cry. I need to be a sad bitch, and I tried to watch it, and I couldn't get into it, so I took a pass. Not to say that I thought it was bad; it just probably wrong time, wrong moment for me. But yeah. Milo Ventimiglia is in it, so and Sterling K. Brown. So, and Mandy Moore. So there are many reasons to watch This Is Us. So maybe another time. But do you watch that? Is it high amongst the teachers' lounge?
You know, actually, amongst the teachers community, it's a very popular show. Oh my God, this should be a segment. Hot news from the teachers' lounge, from the staff lounge.
It's like the girls' room. Girls' room.
But I do know a lot of teachers who watch the show, and my mom. And I know that like her and her like book group pals really enjoyed it. And she too would say something like, "Oh, Simone, I know you don't watch the show, but like this week's episode was like big." Like it was always some kind of like tearjerker.
Yeah. I love a good family drama. I used to love that show Brothers and Sisters with Sally Field and Calista Flockhart and a slew of other actors. Not Balthazar Getty. Was he on that? I think he was. Anyways. All right. This Is Us was on TV in 2016. Some other TV moments. And I want to mention this because there's some very relevant podcast news. But TV series The Night Of premieres on HBO, which to me, I thought was like a fictionalized version of the Adnan Syed
Yes.
Hey Minley case. Very kind of similar, but I was like, oh, I forgot about that. I watched it, but I totally forgot about it. And he just got released and could possibly be free or have a new trial. But I thought that was great. Serial is the first podcast I ever listened to. So
yeah, and that's something that we kind of started to connect like on a deeper level, I think, with our friendship. Because in 2016, this is when I was living abroad. I mean, we've always, I think, like instantly when we first met through our former associate that we like became really close. But in 2016, I was living abroad, and like one of the things that you and I would text about was that podcast and then like true crime stuff.
yes. So very much I'm like here and there with true crime. I think there's a time and place for it in terms of helping cases like Adnan's and trying to really figure out what happened to Hay. And then I know Dahmer's out now, which is current. Not,
dude, I just started watching that. So it's so funny. After watching Collateral Beauty, I was like, I need to decompress. And I watched the first episode.
See, that's where we're different. True crime it stresses me out and it makes me anxious in some ways. So I don't have that like, yes, I'm going to listen to a true crime podcast or watch a show or documentary and like just vibe out. I'm like, I need to watch this during the day. Like, I need as much like security available. But moving on from that, another big TV moment and to true crime too is the People versus OJ, the dramatized series, but also the OJ Made in America documentary, which personally I enjoyed that one a lot better. It gave a lot more perspective on who OJ was and whatnot, especially as a 90s baby, because everything happened and I no clue, did not care. But you always heard about this case and everything, and to understand especially like OJ's fame and like his presence in culture and pop culture and sports and stuff like that, and then to understand the case and the crime and his relationship with Nicole was very enlightening to me. But yeah. And another big TV thing, every 4 years we have the Olympics, and this year 2016 was in Rio. And I know that was met with a lot of scrutiny in terms of like the poverty in Rio and you know, bringing Olympics to cities and what it entails in terms of moving people and displacing people and stuff. This is also the place where Ryan Lochte had his scandal and lied about going out or something. I don't quite remember what it was about, but I definitely remember it being like, oh my God, like...
Yes.
Oh, they lied about like getting robbed or something.
He was, yeah, frat bro energy.
Yes. And him and some younger Olympians got into a sish and they lied about what happened. And then it came out that they lied. So, not so great. But
I do remember a positive note, a lot of people, Olympians, adopting street dogs. And like an influx of people taking in like animals from the shelter over there, just like dogs and cats off the street. We love that.
Pretty dope. Yes. Moving on, I'm gonna close it out with a song that kind of had us in a chokehold for a while, and I feel like it's still like kind of wispy there in the background, but the Chainsmokers Closer. Fucking everywhere. I've never intentionally played this song in my life. But do I know the dun, 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 dun? Yes.
Yes.
I do.
Yeah. So again, I mentioned I was living abroad at that time. I was teaching English in Beijing, and my co-teacher, my Chinese co-teacher that I needed in the classroom as my facilitator, loved two things, Stevie Wonder and the Chainsmokers. And so when I walked into that classroom to like get ready for the day, she was always there before me. there would either be I Just Called to Say I Love You, playing by Stevie Wonder, or like the two most popular Chainsmokers song. And most of the ones that she would play is I need ya, I need ya, I need you right now. And it was just on loop, on repeat.
Oh man. Well, yeah. Let's put that song to rest, maybe.
Yeah.
And really bad pun, but let's also talk about some people who've been put to rest since this movie is about love, time, and death.
Oh.
2016 did a number on pop culture deaths. We had, let's get this, it's not funny, but it became funny somehow. Because, like, rereading about it, I was like, why was this a thing? But Harambe, the gorilla. Right? Yes. So, in case you don't remember, Harambe was a gorilla at a zoo, and a like 4-year-old fell into its enclosure. And in order to save this 4-year-old's life, they decided to kill this gorilla. And so Yes, it became a topic of discussion as to, like, why are we killing him? Why aren't we tranquilizing him? What was the fucking mom doing? Like, what's going on here? Was there a better way to go about this? But then it became like everything nowadays, a fucking joke and a meme, and so it's just Harambe everywhere. Harambe jersey, like, to get a sports jersey, sometimes you can get custom names. They banned Harambe, like, because so many people were getting them, I guess. And I only know that because of Jessica, so thank you. But yeah, what a time. And then in some serious lost news, we lost legends like David Bowie, George Michael. I can't read my scribble. What does this say? Prince. Prince. Yes, Prince, the purple one. I was at work. I remember that. Sometimes I feel like there should be time off where it's just like, I just got some shit that shook me. I gotta go. I can't focus.
Yes. Yeah.
Because that was one of those days. I was just, and I'm not like a huge Prince fan. I like enjoy the songs I know, and his catalog scares me because it's just so huge. Like, I'm like scared to dive into it. But he was so recent. Like, in seeing him, he was like at a Warriors game that year, not too long ago, and it felt like I've never had this happen, but I'm sure, and I've heard of people, like, when you just talk to someone and they die, and it's just like,
you're like, I was just talking to them.
Yeah, or like,
weird.
I just saw him at the Warriors game. What? And I was just like at work, like, disassociating, like, I can't believe Prince is dead. Like, the whole time, I'm pretty sure I kept saying that all day. Like, I can't believe Prince is dead. So Prince, George Michael too was rough. I was like, oh my God, Careless Whisper, like, wham. In sports news and relevant to this podcast, Muhammad Ali passed away in 2016. Arnold Palmer, icon, the half and half iced tea.
We all know the drink.
Yes. But a golf legend nonetheless. We have some TV sitcom parenting royalty here. Alan Thicke from Growing Pains passed away.
Yes.
That shook me. I loved Growing Pains. Young Leo's first gig. And he's also Robin Thicke's daddy. Florence Henderson of the Brady Bunch fame.
Yes.
Fucking loved the Brady Bunch as well.
Yes.
Legend Gene Wilder.
Man, yeah.
It was really just like back to back.
I mean, the Oscars in memoriam was like stacked.
We also have two amazing legends and mother and daughter, Carrie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds. I remember everyone.
Dude. Just within days of each other.
Yes. And that, like, just made it worse because it was like, oh my God, she couldn't live without, like, it's just, whew. And I think that was close to the holidays, and, like, Star Wars had just came back.
Rogue One, yeah.
Yeah, so that one was tough. And then this one, this little sweetie, young actor, Anton Yelchin. he was in Star Trek, he got smashed by his car.
Yes.
That one, I was just like, what?
The freak accidents ones are always like, it's hard enough when someone dies, even if you know that they're sick or something, but like the freak accidents, it's like, what? Death spares no one.
Yes, that was like, I used to watch this show called 1,000 Ways to Die.
That was on Spike TV.
And like, that's like one of those things where it's just like, I hope that's not how I die. But like, there's just things like, that's why when people are like, oh, you could die doing that. And it's like, I could die doing a lot of stuff that like I can't foresee or would never know. Sorry. And so in lighter news, we'll head over to Black Twitter and talk about some classic bops and talk about Drake's album Views came out 2016. He had his Summer 16 tour. Went to that. It's amazing. And that album still giving us it's to me a fall album, so it's almost time to dust her off and bring her out. And I think I've talked enough. So, what's happening in the movies in the box office in 2016?
All right. So, in addition to Collateral Beauty, here are some movies that were also released in December of 2016. Hidden Figures, Fences, Passengers.
What's Passengers?
Passengers with Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt. They were in space. And there were some rumors
so
about
many
them
space
too.
movies after like I want to say like 2013 or something. Like there's that.
Well, yeah, there was The Martian, there was the Sandra Bullock one, there was Interstellar, there was Ad Astra with Brad Pitt. Like there's all this fucking shit in space. Space is relevant always.
The one with Ryan Gosling and Claire Foy with about Buzz Aldrin.
Yes. Yeah. Space.
Propaganda for SpaceX and all that stuff.
Yeah, funded by Bezos. Why Him, which is a movie starring Bryan Cranston and James Franco. Manchester by the Sea, Rogue One, La La Land. I mean, December is always like Oscar buzz, big movies coming out, so
Christmas, Oscar movies, tearjerkers, dramas, all this stuff.
Yes, correct. So going against all of those, here's some box office numbers for Collateral Beauty. The budget for the movie is estimated at $36 million. Opening weekend, which closed December 18th, 2016, was $7.1 million. Total gross between US and Canada was $31 million. And total gross worldwide was $88.5 million. So I think in terms of Christmas movies, this was probably like a pretty steady, like steadfast movie that some people would be interested in seeing. I think personally more people might have been interested in seeing those other movies that I just listed, only because they probably already had like Golden Globe, Oscar buzz around them. But there were some people that had some opinions about this movie. And I am pleased to present The House of Lil Raj, written by Susan. I'm not going to try and pronounce her last name because there's a lot of syllables put back to back, but I'll spell it for you. WLOSZCZYNA. It's like reading a jersey of a Canadian hockey player, where I'm like, I'm not going to figure that one out.
And it's probably pronounced not at all like you think it is.
Oh, yeah.
I would have butchered that. So.
Yeah.
Much
Absolutely.
respect to you, Susan. But
Susan W., we're with you. Any guesses on what Susan W. gives Collateral Beauty?
I don't know. I think, and this is probably just my rating, but I think 3.5.
Okay. Based on what evidence?
Based on what evidence?
Yeah, like what's your reasoning behind your claim?
Well, it's no Legend of Bagger Pants, but
got that right.
And it's not quite Wild Wild West or After Earth, but I think this, to me, I love movies like this. This to me is like definitely with the Christmas vibes, a kind of holiday seasonal movie,
totally.
A feel good movie. I love movies that make you think and reevaluate life and like, you know, how you're living and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm a little biased in that sense, but I think it too, like the cast is outstanding. I mean, look at these people here.
Yes.
And that lends a lot to it. But at the same time, like, I feel like this could have been easily a Hallmark movie or like any kind of drama movie, whatever. So I think it's like definitely above average, and the cast adds a little razzle dazzle, but it's nothing that like I'm gonna leave the theater and be like an Oscar kind of movie, like, oh my god, that was like so good, and you know, amazing performances, like anything like that. But yeah.
Bria, I'm sorry to disappoint you.
You let me talk that whole time. Okay. Anyways.
It's like the end of Mrs. Doubtfire. The whole time. Susan W. gives Collateral Beauty 1.5 stars.
Wow.
And her reasoning and evidence goes as follows. So with our new kind of remedy with reading reviews, I'll sprinkle in a little bit of plot for those who haven't seen Collateral Beauty. So obviously major spoilers ahead. Listeners, grief is a prevalent theme at the movies right now. Such diverse titles as Manchester by the Sea, Jackie, that was the one with Natalie Portman playing Jackie O, and Arrival come at the difficult topic from wildly different angles, personal, political, and otherworldly. But they all manage to justify their use of dead loved ones as a generator of not just emotion, but of understanding about what happens in the aftermath of such great loss. Now comes along Collateral Beauty, and to spoil it all by milking bereavement for cheap tears. Not that this knockoff Hallmark special doesn't go out of its way to camouflage its ill-conceived intentions, as well as the considerable debt it owes to such seasonal chestnuts as A Christmas Carol and It's a Wonderful Life. Director David Frankel and writer Alan Loeb, provide plenty of fancy window dressing, including a stellar cast and a fantasy Manhattan festooned with twinkly Christmas lights, pine limbs, and dirt-free curbside snow. Call me cynical, but I always get suspicious when an acting ensemble feels incredibly star-stacked. We'll get into the cast in a sec. She goes on to say, sometimes I hate it when I am right. Let's start at the beginning. There is the Will Smith that we know and love, with the dazzling smile and oodles of manly self-confidence. He's rallying the troops at his successful ad agency by asking the pseudo-profound question, what is your why? And I would respond, what is the what? But his character Howard instead says, time, love, and death. These three things connect every single human being on earth. We long for love, we wish we had more time, and we fear death. Deep, right? Wrong! Now it's 3 years later, and Howard is a shell of a man, alone, silent, and empty after the death of his 6-year-old daughter from a rare disease. He spends his days in his office constructing elaborate mazes using a platoon of domino tiles. Warning, metaphor ahead, should flash on screen. At night, in his monk-like apartment, he writes bitter diatribes railing at time, love, and death, and actually mails these notes to these subjects. His business partners understandably are nervous because Howard was the charismatic force driving the agency. But with sliding profits, they want to buy him out. But he refuses to discuss such details in his withdrawn state. They end up hiring a private investigator to spy on Howard, and she manages to retrieve his 3 notes. Illegalities be damned. Then magically the characters stumble upon a solution that is that allows Howard to essentially like show his true colors. What they decide to do is they hired the 3 actors to act out incarnations of time, love, and death and make Howard completely nuts so they can prove that he's unstable and save their company. Of course, it's not as simple as that, considering how much attention is paid to the personal travails facing the divorced dad that Edward Norton played, the childless workaholic Kate Winslet played, and the cough-riddled Michael Peña as well. And by the time Howard starts opening up to a grief counselor, who also lost a daughter to a disease, wink, wink, there's a growing sense that funny business is afoot and not in a good way. I don't think this is really kicks it in for me. I don't think I've witnessed a film this year that managed to so completely and utterly collapse into crass garbage in the last few minutes while abusing what little goodwill it had, sort of the way a shaky line of dominoes can tumble upon in a flash. Forget Collateral Beauty, whatever that means. This collateral schmaltz, which is a Jewish word for just like gunk, this collateral schmaltz, the kind that has the power to close rather than open your heart as you rush out of the theater while the terribly named One Republic ballad, Let's Hurt Tonight, provides the exit music. Copyright Susan W., House of Lil Raj.
Wow. I feel like that was mad disrespectful.
I agree, and you know me, I'm already kind of closed off to movies like this, but I actually opened my heart a little bit because I've been a little emotionally vulnerable these past few weeks, and wasn't, I think, fully emotionally prepared for this movie. And so although possibly depending on my mood, I might have agreed, but I do agree with you in that this is a pretty harsh review. I wonder what our true friend Lil Raj would have thought about this. So take for granted this is a House a Little Raj opinion.
Well,
take for granted.
I kind of gave away my ranking, so I would probably give this 3.5 pumps of butter. Simone, I'm curious how close or far apart we are on that before I rip into this lady.
We're pretty close. I would give this 3. I thought the acting in this was brilliant, and we all know how I feel about Kate Winslet. So I had no clue about the cast. So as soon as I saw these names pop up, I was like, I'm in, baby. I'm fucking in. So I was really excited. I love Edward Norton and Kate Winslet and Michael Peña, and we like got a lot of
Helen Mirren,
Keira
Knightley.
Yeah, I'm so on her, but you know. But overall, like I thought the acting in this movie was great. It's the cheesiness of the storyline that made me kind of like eye roll it sometimes, but overall, character wise, there was a lot of depth. So I give this 3 pumps of butter for me.
Nice. My problem with this review is that like it has no critiques for like what's wrong with the movie. Mm-hmm. Is there bad acting? Are the characters not well developed? It's just like, I don't like this type of movie and I think it's stupid.
I agree.
And I have like very little like space for those kinds of things. Like obviously doing a podcast, we're gonna talk about like our thoughts on this movie and stuff, and I just find value in those conversations. You put this out there and you don't have any like points being made to support this like wild ass take you have. I could at least, if people are gonna have like hot takes and wild takes, if they have like some reasoning, even if it's flawed, I give them credit for that, because at least they've like done some of the work. Whereas like I could say anything out of my ass and just like staunchly stand behind it and be like, yeah, I mean, you're not going to change my mind. Okay, what do you do? Like, that doesn't take a lot of effort.
Yeah.
So there's no points being made about why this movie isn't good and is worthy of 1.5 stars, which I have to check what else has gotten 1.5, but that is Wild Wild West territory. And I think After Earth got 1.5, right? Or 1? You got 1.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is not that level, in my opinion. So,
yeah, she never says, and I even skipped a paragraph, but it never even says, like, here's the thing that missed the mark.
Yeah. And in my metaphor of movie sommeliers, her description of this wine was terrible. It was just like, ugh, I don't like this. Gross. Like, there were no notes, no hints of anything, no, swirling of the glass. So, boo to you. I don't care. Let's talk about the cast. And
let's please do.
Besides Willard Carroll Smith II, we have Ed Norton as his right-hand man, Wit. He co-founded this company with Will's character Howard, and he is kind of leading the charge on trying to like sort out this sale of the company that would benefit everyone else involved, and trying to skirt around Howard's mental grief issues. And it kind of, I wasn't prepared to see, like, I haven't seen Edward Norton in anything in a while. I feel like, not like because he hasn't been in stuff, but just like I haven't sought out his movies or anything. So like I will always picture him as Fight Club Ed Norton. And so to see him in this, I was like, oh my God, I didn't realize like he aged that much. Like, but yeah, it's interesting, different. There's an interview of him where it's like, oh, you tend to choose like really serious roles. Like, what goes into your thought process and why something like this? And this is pretty tame for him. Like, to me, he's kind of one of those actors that kind of like goes there a lot into like some deep kind of like fun stuff.
And also plays characters. He's one of the common cast that you'd see in like a Wes Anderson movie, and those tend to be a little bit more quirky characters.
But what we think of him as Wit? I thought he was okay.
Yeah, he was fine. I mean, so his character struggled. He was the character that struggled with the love aspect. His character represented the love out of time, death, and love. So he was going through a divorce.
I just realized that him, Kate, and Michael Peña's characters also parallel.
You just realized?
Well, like Michael, yes, and Kate, but like I didn't register him completely as love, but now it makes sense with his daughter.
Yes. Because it's not always a romantic love.
Yes.
We hold love in many different aspects. So he goes through a divorce. He ended up cheating on his wife. We don't see that part, but what we do see is him picking up his daughter to take her to Christmas, and she has to say, I don't want to go with you. I was going to text you, but mom made me tell you in person, which is like almost even worse to like, that's got to be really tough, I think, for a child to obviously it's so much easier to like text someone how you feel, but to have that conversation in person, I'm like, fuck man, that's got to be tough on like both ends. And so throughout the divorce, he loses his house. He moves in with his mom, who has some kind of dementia or early memory loss, and is clearly looking to make this connection. And there were times where I thought his character was a little sleazy. I didn't like how he was always pining after Keira Knightley, but I do appreciate his big,
that makes sense now.
Yes.
Now that we connected and things.
Yes. So I do like his ending that he got to have with his daughter, where he's like, I'm not giving up. Like, I'm going to come here every day. And she's like, so what? You're going to stalk me? And he was just like, yeah, I guess I am. And she's like, all right, well, tomorrow's a half day. So you can, get me that.
Moving on, we have Kate Winslet,
my queen,
Academy Award winner. Like, if you watch this trailer, the Academy Award winner or nominee.
Boom, boom, boom,
yes,
boom. Yeah.
Heavy, which is also why I went so hard about J-Lo being nominated, so that shit matters.
It does.
Every other movie after Hustlers could have been Academy nominated.
Add that to a title on your placard, yeah.
And hell, Will at this point is just a nominee, and he was up there, and now it'll say winner from here on out, no matter what the fuck happened that night.
Hell yeah. So, I agree.
Can't take that shit away. Anyways, Kate Winslet. I was shocked to see her in this. I was like, what? And I was like, score. I'm also in this, like you said earlier.
Yeah, I was fucking in. It didn't surprise me, actually, that she'd be in this. I mean, we know that she picks really serious, big roles, too. But, she was in movies like Love Actually, right? The Holiday. That's it. The other Christmas movie.
I love that movie.
I know. You and Leah, man. You both love that movie so much.
I swear. It's probably one of my favorite Christmas movies now.
Yeah.
And I saw that in theaters. It's in there. It's got its claws on me.
It lives in you. Hannah, Hannah, it lives in me. Anyways, Kate Winslet is great. It sometimes surprises me that she ends up doing American accents where I'm like, well, if they can write off Keira Knightley as just keeping her accent, I don't know if it's too difficult for Keira Knightley to do an American accent, but
it kind of bothered me that she had one.
Yeah.
Which is weird because I'm usually surprised by British actors. Yeah. Because I'm like, what? They're British?
Yeah.
Fooled me. And this was the opposite. I was like, girl, I know you're not American.
But I will say that her accent has come a long way. And in a lot of her interviews, especially, everyone loves to ask her about Titanic. And her biggest critique of herself in that is that she was like, I was so young that my American accent was so weak, and you can hear it. She had a couple of similar lines between that and Titanic. And yes, I know every single spoken word in that movie. So I'm like, oh, she said something similar to that in Titanic. And it sounds a lot better. I wish that she wasn't always pigeonholed to these roles, but I guess that just kind of happens when you get older in Hollywood, that you fall into this stereotype of this hard-working businesswoman who doesn't have time to start a family. But that's when her character plays into the concept of time.
Yeah. And she's in the TV series Mayor of Easttown, and way better accent, even that was a year ago.
Yes.
So 5 years after this.
Yeah.
So good. But yeah, this reminded me a lot of The Holiday. And I kind of wish she was in it more.
Yeah.
But I can't. Can you critique Kate Winslet?
No.
It was just solid acting. I feel like this was a movie that appealed to this cast because it's definitely a interesting, touching topic. Clearly these people have hearts, so it probably touched them in some way. But I feel like it's not a script you're like, oh, I'm gonna get into the meat and potatoes of this. I'm really gonna be able to dig deep and bring up all my training or whatever, be a thespian. This is probably one of those movies that is just this is really good, touching subject, and look at the amazing people I'm gonna work with, and just not a cruise control, but nice scenic drive.
Yeah, I think that's a great analogy.
So when we talk about everyone who's a fucking amazing actor, we're not saying they're sending it in and just coasting, but they didn't have to dig too deep in their bags, but they're definitely giving as well.
Yes.
Moving on, we've got Michael Peña, who I've seen in plenty of things, but he strikes me as one of those actors, you see a lot, but you're like, what was he in?
Yeah.
He was in Crash. He was in American Hustle, Shooter, End of Watch. He's been in so much stuff. So,
yes.
Amazing to see him in this, and diversity as well in his character story. And I think actually maybe because I don't have this impression of him, in the sense like Ed Norton and Kate Winslet and Helen Mirren and Keira and Will, that like I thought his performance stood out the most.
How come?
I don't know if it's like his story because he's dying and he had a little bit more to work with maybe, but like I just thought he had really like strong moments of like just like got me.
Oh, definitely. Well, at first he didn't want to tell his family what was happening because this was like a reoccurring cancer that he was in remission for, and then it comes back, but it like came back throughout different stages of his life. And he just had this feeling of like, I'm not coming back from this one this time. And so he originally decides to not say anything to his wife. He has a very young child. And then is ultimately persuaded by Death herself, played by Dame Helen Mirren, to say something. And there's this, there's lots of really great one-liners in this one, but Death gives time all of its value because we always think like one of the first things we think of is we never had enough time with our loved ones. And it's at the end of the day, it's, sometimes we feel that to be true, no matter if you spend every waking second with someone, we still feel like it's not enough time. And then we have, this moment at the end where his wife, he, is really sick in the bathroom and he opens up the door and his wife sees him and she just kind of knows.
Yeah. But I think besides Will, I think he had the second strongest performance.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't knock Mr. Smith off. Just to go back for a second to Kate, because we didn't really talk about like her connection in this and time. So she is a very career successful woman. So of course she's now facing the threat of time of becoming a mother possibly, and looking into that throughout the movie of like having a child somehow, some way. And so, I mean, obviously that's always a very poignant storyline and topic and experience to touch on. And I think it's interesting too how it's like really her story is kind of really in between like love and not death, but like death in the sense of life, like bringing a new life in this life, like having love for it, or the love of trying to become a mom or being a mom. So just wanted to talk about her role within this story besides her relationship with Will. Helen Mirren plays Brigitte. And so Helen Mirren, Keira Knightley, and Jacob Lattimore are in a theater group. Yes. And they're actors, and they get sought out by Ed Norton, Kate Winslet, and Michael Peña's characters to play Love, Time, and Death. And so Helen Mirren is Death, which at first is like, oh yeah, I'm the old one. I'll be Death.
But she's the most wise out of all of them.
That too. And the way she plays Death is like in a way I've never seen it portrayed really on screen. So I thought that was amazing. But like, she's just so fucking effortlessly good. She's definitely like in the Meryl Streep world. She probably, honestly, she's before Meryl Streep, so she found that world. But she just brings an ease to things that is just so like, she makes it look easy when it's probably hard. But
I agree.
But Will talked about how she chose, so in this movie when she goes up to Howard as Death and tries to like kind of rock his world a little bit. She's in blue, which Death usually you'd be like black, we think of the Grim Reaper, he's in black and stuff like that, and then you usually wear black to funerals, but she chose blue, and I thought that was interesting that she actually chose that, and like it wasn't the costume person, and like she put some thought into this, and and how she played her, and all that stuff was very nuanced to me. So I really enjoyed her performance as well.
She reminded me, not that I thought she was phoning it in, but this wasn't something that I felt like. I felt like this was a role that might have come pretty naturally to her. Not that I think that she's wackadoo, but she played a very stereotypical wackadoo, like theater teacher, just like always wanting to be the front and center of the role and to be like, oh, if she can't make it, I will play the part. Like she's so funny, and brings a good comedic relief, which I think ties back into it that not that death can be funny, but that we need to remind ourselves to bring humor to help us like process death sometimes.
Yeah. And her moments with Michael Peña's character, I thought were fantastic. Great. Yeah. And the reveal at the end. Whew. I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah.
Suck on that, review lady.
Suck on that.
Sarah W. I'm not trying to skip over this person, but I just want to keep the love, death, and time people together. But next we have Keira Knightley, who plays Love, who's very reluctant to be a part of this scheme. Mm-hmm. And I think that part of that really sold to me, like, they're real. Because, spoiler alert, Love, Time, and Death, played by these actors, are actually Love, Time, and Death by the end of the movie. Like, they're... Mm-hmm. And it's like, initially it was like this kind of Scrooge device of like past, present, future kind of thing, and they were paying them to play these roles and play along and convince Howard that death and time and love were really visiting him and trying to him something. And then at the end we find out like, oh shit, no, they were actually real. So like it kind of brings to mind to me like fate and fate and like just like the universe and like things working out like when they need to, because like they initially, it just seemed very selfish that they were like, we need the company to like not go under and we need to sell and like be able to, and a lot of it like at least like, you know, Michael Peña's character and stuff is just like, you know, these people built this company along with Howard, and so they want to reap the benefits of that. And it's not completely selfish and take care of their families and help his sickly mom and stuff like that. But at the same time, like, you know, it's kind of shady to do this to your friend. Yeah. But seeing that they were actually like these devices in life, like, was like, okay, like, it wasn't completely like, okay, this was kind of shady and it worked out. Like, it was like, no, like, this was like meant to happen. This was like the way that he needed to get through this grief. Like, it was like destined or whatever. So all that to say that Keira Knightley is very hesitant to be a part of this.
Yeah, she was like, I'm out. This feels wrong. This feels like we're playing on an already like unstable or like borderline mentally ill person who's struggling with his grief. Like, I'm not about to like drive him further down the hole.
Yeah. And then after the first initial, like, they go through and like show up and, you know, pretend to be these things, and then she doesn't want to do it again, and she does it again. So like those kind of like layered pieces of these characters like really helped sell it to me, where I wasn't like, and I'm pretty good sometimes with movies where I'm like, oh, this is gonna happen, and like I saw none of the stuff that happened coming. Like, I was just like, like, so.
Oh, interesting.
Did you saw it coming?
Yes, I did.
Oh, maybe I was just like, I don't know.
I think it's because I was already in kind of like a kind of mood. I was kind of like, what next? And so like one of the big reveals in the movie is when Howard starts to finally go to grief counseling, and I was like, that's his wife. I just was like, that's his wife. I fucking knew it. And then Kevin was just, and then as soon as the like each character started to like pair off with each separate actor as they like prep for the role, I was like, This is what I said. Oh my God, guess what? The coworkers that pair with each actor is also representation of love, time, and death. And that's not to like knock it, and I don't want to insult you.
Yeah.
Like some
No.
surprises are like more apparent than others. I think I was already in like a cynical mood, which is why I'm still surprised I think so highly of this movie. Because it's still like this is typically something that I'd be like,
yeah,
this is dumb. But
I'm a sap, and I was just like, where are we going? Like, what's going on with him? And like, I was along for the journey wholeheartedly.
Yes. Me too. I really was along for the journey. And so when I was like, oh, guess what? These are all representations. Kevin's like, and guess what? They're probably going to not really be real the whole time. And then at the end of the movie, I just turned to him. I was like, I'll be goddamn.
Well, let's not forget.
Yes.
One more, well, not one more actor, but one more device is Time, Mr. Jacob Lattimore, who I am familiar with from the television series The Chi. He also is a singer, I believe, and makes music. So he is definitely following and in the mold of a Will Smith. So
he's handsome.
Yes. And it's weird because he's young here, and I know him now in The Chi, and he has sex scenes and stuff. So I felt a little like, oh, he's like cute, but also like, oh, like I also remember him being this young, and he's like a baby. Like, and I think he's younger. How old is he? Because there's people I think are younger than me, and then like we're the same fucking
He's
age.
96. Born in 96.
Okay, yes, he is younger than me, so I appropriately feel like a tad bit like auntie vibes. But and not because I'm that old, it's just that my nephew is that young too. So it's just like, that's a weird place. Anyways, I thought his acting was pretty good. I think he's grown as an actor too. But I think he's the youngest in this cast. And I liked that age difference of like older, middle, young kind of thing. Yeah, and I'm glad that there's like another a black man in this movie. And I think too that played an element in his role as Time. I'm not quite sure, but I feel like how Howard was talking about him is like this little like brat, like, you know, I feel like that wouldn't have translated if he was like another ethnicity or race. Like, so, and it, like, I don't know, maybe he, like that portrayal of Time too wouldn't have translated to Howard as well either. I don't know. But I thought that added to it. And so I liked his performance. But nothing too.
One of the interviews I saw, he got really nervous working with this big cast. And so in the scene when he has one-on-ones with Kate Winslet, he like fumbled his lines a few times, but then when he got through it and they yelled cut, Kate Winslet was like, that was amazing, and was like super hyping him up. And he's like, I carry that with me forever.
Sometimes that's all you need, you know, is someone you know is really good at this shit being like, oh my God, you're doing amazing, sweetie. Like, you're like, oh my God, thank you, Kate Winslet.
That's when I could just
Helen Mirren.
pass away and be like, I'm done.
Right.
Reached peak status.
J-Lo, we're just waiting for you to be like, you guys are doing amazing. And we're still talking about the cast. So,
okay. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. Naomie Harris.
Yes, who plays Madeline, who we later find out is Howard's wife and the mother of his daughter who passed away. I thought she was really good. Part of me was like, with such a star-studded cast, I was like, could we have gotten somebody else like with a bit of a bigger name in this? And then I was like, why am I trying to like diminish this woman's opportunity and role and all this stuff? So it's hard for me sometimes with being like, oh, I kind of was wondering like who could have done this instead, but I did wonder it. So but she was good, and I I don't know. I think part of, and maybe that was part of why I didn't guess that she was his wife. Like, I didn't see them as a possible couple or pairing. Like, I thought she was going to help Howard through his grief for sure. But I wasn't like, oh, there's going to be some kind of chemistry or spark where, like, he's going to fall in love with her and slowly be able to, like, heal through this. So I don't know. I miss that. But she's been in Bond movies and she was in Moonlight. So
yeah, she played, I think, his mom at the young stage
in Moonlight.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in 127 Days Later, she was in a zombie movie, and so that's where I knew her from. But I think this was not British? She is, yeah. So this isn't my favorite Naomie Harris role, but I've loved her in the other things that she's done. I know she's very capable, but her role was a lot more minor than some of the other ones, but played an important part where when Howard started to go to therapy, or started to show up to the grief counseling rather, and he said, I hear these voices, and she's like, talk to them. What do they say? And it kind of keeps the ball rolling and that dialogue open.
Yeah. But the person who came to my mind to possibly, not to shade Naomie Harris or her acting or anything, but to possibly, I was like, who could I possibly see in this? And I only thought of Kerry Washington for some reason. I don't know why, but I don't think her and Will have worked together either, so it's not like I have something to go on. But I think Will, like we've said before, works really well with almost anybody and can find it. And this was like a really different pairing. This was not like romantic or silly, goofy mood like Will. Like, this was like really kind of dark, kind of really sad, kind of really like bummer, like really like traumatic Will. So it's hard to be like, I want this really, great actress or this person or something like that. But I don't know, I wish there was maybe a little bit more depth to Madeline too. Like, I know she had kind of dealt with her grief better than Howard, but I also wish like we got some sense of like a little bit more sense of like, I've been where you are. She felt a little too happy-go-lucky to me a little bit, but
yeah, I can see that.
Moving on, let's talk about Will Smith and the plot and story of this movie in full. I thought this was a really good performance. I mean, Will is like a fine wine. He just keeps getting better at this point. Like,
yes.
Clearly you connected this with 7 Pounds, another movie about death and grief and dealing with that. And I think he got better. Like, the thing that got me was like when he was crying at the end, like
those were thick tears,
like red eye thick tears,
like. And his father was like sick or dying when he was like researching for this role, so I think he brought in a lot of that very personal connection to it.
And I think too, like, Will is probably just really good. Like, we see him talk about roles and talk about them in this very like, I want to understand and solve that. Like, I'm doing like Rubik's Cube gestures, but yeah, like he wants to figure stuff out and learn and like, really dig deep and stuff for stuff. And so he, in talking about this movie, kept saying like, this is definitely like one of the most like, where's my quote? Impactful movies of his career. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be impactful in that like this movie won me an Oscar. I really like went full like method or something like that. But like I think like you said, like where he was in his life, his dad passing, and then we know from like After Earth and stuff, he's trying to be a better father and husband and stuff. And so I'm pretty sure all of that is touched on in this movie as well played a role in that. And so finding some personal growth within this role probably just really helped amplify and make him want to do this movie. But man, yeah, he did such a good job. Like the crying scene, I was just like, that is some acting, or some just real fucking digging deep
there.
Yeah, and then but too like him maintain like we usually talk about, like Will can will through a movie, but he's usually charismatic. He's usually like a leader. He's usually funny, and this movie starts off with a flashback, but like after that, he is like staunchly like just like in his grief and like cold and locked down and shut off from the world, and that to me was so like nuanced and like you can tell I just feel like I could see his wheel spinning in his head the whole time of like him riding his bike. Like it wasn't like an empty riding his bike. It was like him probably thinking about his daughter. Like that's how I felt watching this. Like it all felt very like it felt like he lost somebody.
Yes, so. Absolutely. You and I are on very similar wavelengths. There was a lot of silent acting. He felt so trapped in his mind that he was nonverbal for a good portion of this movie, but conveyed so much emotion through his facial expression. The lostness is not a word, but like he looked so lost in the eyes.
Yeah.
And not in the way that a confused or mentally ill person might look.
Kind of dead inside.
But like, dead inside. Yeah. And the way that he rode his bike against traffic, not with the speed and with the flow of traffic, but like in the opposite direction. Not that I thought he was going to kill himself, but just like so.
I thought that's what he was trying to do.
It just felt so like he wasn't even thinking. It was so secondary, and clearly he doesn't eat very much. Sometimes Kate Winslet or his coworkers would drop food off at his house, and his landlord would be like, he doesn't eat it, but like the kung pao shrimp he left last week was great, like
that was a nice like light moment.
Yes.
The movie.
Yes, but he did eat. Like he did go to a restaurant, and then that's when Keira Knightley shows up crying, and then she's like, I blew it. But like he does eat obviously to keep himself alive, but sleeps very little because he's haunted by images of his daughter. He shows up to work but isn't present at work. He creates these little domino traps, and in a way almost reminded me of someone who's on the spectrum and they're nonverbal, but that doesn't mean they're not thinking or feeling something. They just don't have a way of necessarily expressing it in the same way that, verbal, neurologically, people can, you know what I mean? And I really saw these like nuanced moments. And of course, at the end, there's this gut-wrenching scene where he signs the shares over to his coworkers, and there was like one last piece of paper that they didn't know about, but he kept on getting mail of like, it's an urgent matter. And they like, showed the ruse of him being filmed talking to himself, to love and time and death and these people. And he realizes like, yeah, all right, I'm not well, I'm gonna sign this over. And his coworkers feel obviously really shitty about it, but they kind of understand, okay, maybe this is the best thing. And then he signs the second piece of paper, and they lean over and like, what was that paper about? And they said, well, his daughter was like on the trust of his account, and he needed to acknowledge that she's no longer with us. And then they're like, oh, fuck me, I need a drink. And it's like that moment where he's like sitting at the conference table, and he's like wiping away these tears, and he's like it's going to be okay. It's for the best. It's for the best. But damn. I just keep on saying thick tears.
Yeah, that was a really good scene too, because he addresses like all of them and like the things that they're going through, which I'm sure they didn't realize he was
like, bitch, you thought that I didn't know, but I know this. He's like, Michael, not Michael, but like, how long you been sick? And you gave up having a family for me to like keep this company afloat, and like you are losing to Edward Norton, like you're losing your family like after this divorce. Me. Woo!
Because he tells him, he's like, your daughter's the most important.
Yeah, you don't need permission to be her father.
Yes, I wrote that down, and I was just like, more parents need to know that, because I think I hear a lot too, like at work, like a lot of my coworkers, all of them are parents. I think I'm the only one without a kid, but a lot of them are parents, and some of them have preteens and teenagers now, and that's a very much time of like kind of anti-parents, or thinking a lot, or not wanting to do stuff with your parents, and like wanting to do stuff with your friends and stuff. And I always try to remind them, like, they're gonna come around. Like, you kind of have to go through that phase, because then once you're hopefully, and it might take longer, everyone's different, but like I know being in college, being away from home, being a young adult, you really realize like all the stuff your parents did for you, and you like kind of appreciate them. If you're far away, for me at least, I unfortunately think about death a lot. So when I was at college, and we went to a Catholic private college, so I took religious courses for requirements, and there were times where I felt like, oh my God, like I would go to bed and I'd be like, I hope my parents are good, and I hope that they're healthy and alive. And like I was just like, I hope while I'm not away they just die, or like something all of a sudden. And I still think like that. I'm not ready for that day. But all that to say that sometimes when you're a parent and your kids are assholes, because they're human, you have to push through that and realize that you're their parent, and you don't need permission to be their parent. And I think sometimes parents get in the mode of like, well, they should want to do this with me, or I'm trying to be nice and ask them to do stuff with me. And sometimes, like, thinking back, I'm like, I wish my parents just made me go with them and do stuff with them, instead of being like, we're going here, you want to come? As a teenager, of course not. Like, I'm just gonna be walking around behind you two, like, fuck no. Like, I'd rather stay home and talk about the OC online with other teenagers. You know, but like I hear those similar stories, and I talk about being patient, but like this reminded me, like, sometimes you don't need to ask, and even if they're being little, but then sometimes it's like you bring them, and then like they ruin the fucking thing for you because they don't want to be there. There's like like, can we go? Or like, now you have phones. Back when we were teenagers, you could be occupied on your phone, but not as much now. Now you have a whole entertainment system like with you in your pocket. Maybe at best you had your Game Boy or your iPod, but yeah, that line just really resonated with me. I was just like, that's
yes. Right. He was like, out of all people, I'm disappointed in you, not with how you've managed the company, but how you're managing your family. He was like, learn from me. Don't take this time for granted.
Yeah. So that was a great scene.
It really was. And like, you can see the shock of their face of like, oh, whoops, he's a lot more with it than we gave him credit for.
Yeah. The other part of that is the videos of them having the actors talk to him, and then their plot was like, oh, we'll have them digitally removed so that it conveys that he's talking to himself kind of, and obviously not in the right mental mind frame to continue running this company. But when we finally saw the footage, because when we saw it happening, we saw Helen Mirren and Jacob Lattimore and Keira talking to him, but Will probably had to shoot those scenes twice by himself. And like that, I was like, I didn't think about that while they were doing it. And so seeing that, I was like, yeah, because in my mind, I was like, man, they did a great job digitally removing them. And then I was like, he probably shot this by himself. And so again, we've seen him do this in I Am Legend, sort of like acting by yourself. But and now with green screen actors do it all the time.
True.
But I always find that so impressive because I'm like, I couldn't do that probably. So it's still as much convincing. Like I was like, oh man, the digital removal is really good. That I had to be like, oh dummy, like he did this twice probably. That's how convincing his acting was. So mad props to you, Will.
Mad props.
What else in Will's scenes and performance?
I mean, I think he played a confused person this really well, and I don't mean for that to sound insulting, but it reminded me of when we had our discussion 2 weeks ago about concussion, with how you thought the original plot was going to be he played a football player with CTE and not a doctor.
I got what I wanted.
Yeah, we kind of got what we wanted with that one. I was like, he plays a confused person pretty damn well. But it's like confused, but he knows a lot more than what we give him credit for. Just lost in that sea of grief.
Yeah. And I think like in terms of confusion, he played like when these devices come to him and it's just like, well, you wrote me this letter. And he's like, and so I forget who it is. I think it's Love or someone. And he's just, oh yeah. Is it the second time Keira Knightley comes?
He's like, no, what, are you going to cry again?
No, it's the first time when he's eating at the diner and he's like, she's like, oh, hey. And he's like, hey, like, hi lady, like I'm eating dinner by myself. And she's like, this letter. And then he's like, are you fucking kidding me? I mean, that was really like, he was just like tired and like, worn down. And now I'm hallucinating these things that are letters are coming back to me and talking to me and stuff. Like those moments of him realizing like who these people are supposed to be. Even when Time sees him the second time and he's skateboarding and he's on the back of his bike and then he's like yelling at him and he's like, I don't want your gift and stuff. Like I was just like, oh, like good stuff.
Good.
Yeah. So those were impressive moments to me in that regard. And then too, like I thought, well, it's not really acting because it's just like how he thought about these things were just really profound to me. But that's just like the character and the writing at that point.
But, like, and I have to hand it to the like writers of this movie. I wish we actually got to hear all of the letters that he wrote, not just like these little snippets, because there's some profound shit in there. I mean, especially when it comes to like death is this like rotting flesh that never really like goes away or something. Nothing's ever really dead when you look at it right. Kind of like there's some really Shakespearean deep stuff in there. That those I found so more those lines were the ones that were like, bitch, fuck me up, rather than some of the acting. Yeah. Even though the acting was great, but like there were just some like great one-liners. I was like, God damn, I'm a sucker for like a good one-liner.
Yeah, like when Love sees him the second time and she's like, you have to trust me. And he goes into like, I trusted you when I looked in her eyes and she called me dad and stuff. But Amy, played by Keira Knightley, goes, no, I'm in all of it. I'm the darkness and the light. I'm the
I have
sunshine and the
goosebumps, yeah.
storm. Yes, you're right. I was there in her laugh, but I'm also here now in your pain. I'm the reason for everything. I am the only why. Don't try and live without me, Howard. Please don't. And I was like, oh my God, that's so true. Like, because I've seen a beautiful interview with Andrew Garfield talking about
I know
grief.
exactly what you're talking about. Every time I see that, I cry.
Yes. But this reminded me of that because she's like, you think that like I've left you or something, or you want to give up on love. And in reality, the reason why you're in so much pain is because of love, because
The
of that
grief is
love
the
for,
reminder of all the love that she had for us.
yeah. And so I was just like, oh, fuck me up. Fuck me up,
Bitch.
girl.
Yeah,
Like,
dude.
oh my God, this is not at all like what I was expecting. So,
It really wasn't. And I'll be honest, when I read the tagline fantasy drama, I was like, in what way is this fantasy? But then it made sense, obviously, towards the end. There's
yeah.
like that ethereal.
Question, speaking of the
Hmm.
fantasy part of it, it's clearly fantasy because of this device of like love, time, and death and like
Hmm.
visiting him and
Hmm.
stuff. What did you think about that? Because like once I realized what they were doing by asking the actors to do it, I was like, oh, this is like Scrooge, like, and then it was like
Yep.
Christmassy and stuff.
Hmm.
But I thought it was a great like spin and interpretation on that. Like, this is what I want when people want to remake or reboot things. This is what I
Yes.
want. Like, take that idea and do something different with it.
Yes. This could have definitely been a retelling of A Christmas Carol, but it's not so much of someone having to like wrong their rights like Scrooge did, or like seeing the error of their ways, but just bringing them back to not reality, but back to Earth, I guess.
Living in the present.
Thank you. Thank you. Back to living in the present is a
The
much better way of
collateral
saying.
beauty.
Yes. Roll credits.
Um, Another quote I came across on IMDb is like Will's rant on the subway to death.
Mm-hmm.
And like that too was so profound because it's like, it's so hard when I haven't had anyone very, very close besides my grandparents pass, but it's just so hard when people are going through grief. And a lot of times we don't know what to say. And so we recycle a lot of the same things. And so
Yeah.
he spills off a lot of those things like, she's in a better place. This is all part of a master plan. God
Mm.
looked down and saw the most beautiful rose, so beautiful that he picked it to have it in heaven all for himself. And I know that when we say these things, it's coming from of like, I want to like say something meaningful, but then, you hear these things so much and then in grief, like there's nothing that could be said that makes anything make
Yeah.
sense or makes it okay or makes it hurt less. And so like I thought his like embodiment of like, I don't want to hear all these like things that it's supposed to happen and stuff. Like, she should be here. And two, Howard prayed to death that they could
Take
trade
her, take
places.
him instead. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like that's such a common thing too,
Yes.
that
Take me
like,
instead.
yeah, and especially with kids, like it's so like St. Jude commercials fuck me up. Like it's so sad because I can't imagine like we've watched sad movies and I always talk about how I watched Selena. I'm like, she was so young, and like being older than her now, I'm like, she did so much. And it's the opposite with kids. You're like, they had so much that they didn't get to do or see or experience, and they
Mm-hmm.
were taken so young and all that kind of stuff. So it's just like all of that wrapped up into this, woo, like
Mm-hmm.
hit me upside the head, like
Oh,
throw the
yeah.
tissues at me. Like,
Yes, I too. I I did not have the thick tears, but I had like I realized that I was like holding them because I was so like engrossed in the movie, and then all of a sudden they came down. I was like, Oh, I didn't know that there were like tears like to my eyes. Like, because I was just so like watching the movie and then like I blinked and the tears just like bloop, came down. I was like, well, oh
Yeah. And even like towards the end, like he starts singing Row, Row, Row Your Boat, which I'm pretty sure I knew that was like morbid, but like in this context, I was like, damn, I didn't, it like re registered for me. But at the end, he said, you know, I guess we should just accept you, right? Like, and that's
damn.
it. I get it. But here's the thing, it's all a bunch of intellectual bullshit because she's not here holding my fucking hand. And so sometimes there's like those emotional ways to look at death, that and those platitudes that like, oh, you know, God saw this beautiful, or the best angels, or her mission was complete, or her purpose
Everything
was.
happens.
And then sometimes there's the people who are intellectual about it, like, you know, well, we all have to go and it's part of life and blah 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 and all that stuff. And
Mm.
like he said, like none of it makes up for like the emptiness essentially that he's
Mm.
feeling. And all of that just like
Oof.
yeah. I felt like I liked I like 7 pounds. I thought that one was touching too, but I feel like this one fucked with me more than 7 pounds.
Are you asking me which one fucked with me
Yes.
more? I think I was in a more vulnerable state when I watched this, but I think what the pleasant surprise behind 7 Pounds and Collateral Beauty was that I had no idea what they were about. These were
Yes.
both first time watches for me. I actually didn't watch the trailer for this one beforehand because I just wanted to give it a go and to watch it very fresh. Never even really heard about this. Honestly, I was watching the other movies that were coming out this month, and this kind of skirted by, and I think sadly so. I think this movie definitely deserves um more attention, and it's a bummer that it didn't get as like big of a as great as a review. Now that's just one person's opinion. I'm sure that there are reviewers out there um who enjoyed it. But you definitely like this is a movie that I think you said this in the beginning of like, I need to like when we were talking about This Is Us, you're like, I need to cry, I'm gonna put this on. I think this is a good um I need to like feel something emotional tearjerker. This wouldn't necessarily be on my like Christmas rotation of holiday
Yeah.
movies by any means, but definitely left watching the movie feeling like I needed to decompress, which obviously meant that it affected me emotionally. Now, with 7 pounds, I laid down on this bed behind me under my 30-pound weighted blanket and just needed to like stare at the ceiling. Because again, it shooketh me of like, oh my God, this is what this movie is about. And then same with Collateral Beauty. Like it was the kind of surprise of not knowing, but a
Yeah.
pleasant surprise.
I feel like for 7 pounds, he was just like a man on a mission, you know? And of course, like the relationship with Rosario Dawson's character kind of deterred his mission a little bit, but like in the end, like he finished what he started.
Mm-hmm.
And this to me, I was curious if it was gonna go that route, like if he was gonna take some extreme form of like dealing with his grief. But to me, it wrapped up nicely, like him coming to his ex-wife's house and
Mm-hmm.
you know being
Saying
able
her
to
name.
say his daughter's name, which up until then he hadn't. Like he had, that was a wall where he's just like, no, I'm not doing that, and leaving, or the subject would be changed, whatever the situation was. But that moment finally happening, and then eventually seeing them later walking through a park and kind of reconciled, like, I don't know, that to me was a little bit rewarding. Like 7 pounds was so extreme of a way. Like there was nothing wrong with him to make that decision of like, kind of like, I'm already terminally ill in some way, and so all the good parts of me I want to give away. And it was just kind of, I don't want to say insane, but it's kind of an insane idea to like be like, I killed my wife and I don't deserve to live, and so therefore I'll donate my organs and give other people kind of a life back.
I think it was not just his wife, but like the 7 other people that were like taken from that car crash. But I agree with you. Like, it was extreme, and of this, like, I'm essentially slowly going to kill myself to redeem the deeds that I've done, to either clear my consciousness or make things right in some way. And I actually really appreciated this. I never talked about this with 7 pounds, that it was not necessarily a religious thing of like redeeming someone's soul or repenting before death. Because in some movies that have religious overtones, they tend to kind of lean on that a little bit. And not that there's anything wrong if that's, you know, something that like brings you comfort in your life, but it wasn't necessarily about like the redeeming of like, okay, whew, all right, I did these good things, now I feel better about myself. There was like truly a mission to like really better the lives of other people, and that's why he was so picky and choosy with who he decided, like he put them through tests to decide if they were, you know, gonna be the right person or not, which, you know, also has its conversations. But how
do you decide that?
Right.
But I think part of that too is probably Will, because he is such a student of religion and stuff, and he's not necessarily head first in anything in particular. Another moment I would like to talk about is time. He talks about in his letter is that Howard wrote, you know, they say you heal all wounds, but they don't talk about how you destroy that's all good in the world, how you turn beauty into ash. And then time responds like, that's some bullshit, Howard. Now, if love is creation and death is destruction, I'm just the terrain in between. Yeah. And I was just like,
again,
about that. Like,
the writing on this was pretty brilliant.
Yeah. And that's just like some little snot-nosed teenager, skater boy teenager delivering that to you. Like, you know, so that was fucky. And then
did you say fucky with a Y at the end?
Yes.
Adding that down next to the caucasity of vocab terms. Thank you.
What kind of
fuckery is this?
And maybe in heading towards wrapping up, or, you know, some kind of closure, the end too, where Naomie Harris's character Madeline, prior to the end, Howard's telling her, you know, I'm having these hallucinations, I'm seeing these things, I wrote these letters, blah blah blah. And so at some point she's like, you know, can I tell you something, you know, and take this how you want it. But when I was at the hospital, this lady sat next to me and she gives the movie its title and talks about Collateral Beauty and stuff, and how they told her, you know, don't lose sight of the collateral beauty, and that, you know, teaching him kind of that moment, like, you know, you need to find the beauty in life and hold on to that, essentially. And so at the end we get to see that scene again, and I was kind of like, what's, like, because at that point we know that they're married and that they both lost the same kid. And so at that point I was like, oh, is Howard gonna show up, or like what's gonna happen? And lo and behold, who's the lady talking about Collateral Beauty and asking who are they losing and, you know, sad about? It's Helen Mirren's character, Brigitte, Death. And I was just like, oh, that bitch. And not like in a like true bitch, but just like, oh, you're good. Like,
gotcha.
Because I don't know, I feel like that was kind of like full circle in a weird way. Again, like this is how Howard had to grieve, and this is how this had to happen. Like
Uh-huh.
she was there when they lost their daughter, and they had to go through all of this, and eventually she came to him at the right time, and along with love and time helped him get through it and helped them get back together. But I did not foresee that twist. I was just like, oh, what? Like, so that was it. That was a good one. I'm curious too if like, well, no, I said it made sense, but Edward Norton's character was kind of really into Keira Knightley's character, Amy, and was like trying to go on a date with her. And I wonder, I said it made sense since that was his like kind of mirror character, but I wonder if that's more than his daughter as well.
Like he's looking for another love
Because he's
connection.
like single and
Well, yeah,
like
he clearly
divorced.
fell out of love with his wife because he had an affair. So
Yeah.
his character was like, I don't want to say unfavorable, but like there were some, he was not as sympathetic as
Yeah.
other characters might
Not
have
that
been.
redeemable.
Yeah. But then, redeemable in some ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see he's like very longing for a connection that someone he feels close to, and not and Keira Knightley obviously is beautiful, but also her character Amy is like pretty profound and like with it, and um it just, my question, Bria, that I wrote in all caps at the bottom, this could have been the Chardonnay talking at this point, but like, if it's true that Brigitte and Amy and Rafi were not real and they were just manifestations or realizations of love, time, and death, who the fuck did Kate Winslet give her money to? Who did they give their money to?
Who's to say that the money really went anywhere?
But they handed them pieces of paper or a check or something.
Yeah, but like I don't know. I feel like in like a universe fantasy world like this, like it would go back, because there's nowhere for it to go. These people aren't people.
So were they also talking to themselves?
I know. So you know how when they initially were asking them, like they were all in the theater, and then Helen Mirren's like, "Okay, well, how does this work? Like, does he see us? Like, all do other people see us? Does he see us all the time? Like, they were trying to figure out their motivation or like their character, whatever. And so at some point it's like, oh, some people can, like, you can appear when you need to or whatever, and some people, for other people, they can't see you. And so I think they appeared real for Ed Norton, Kate Winslet, Michael Peña's characters, because that's what they needed them for. And then for Will's character, they appeared real but weren't. It's kind of, okay. Like, think of Casper. Okay, I'm just trying to think of like somebody who wasn't like alive but like was present at some point, and or like Binks in Hocus Pocus.
Oh,
Like,
Binks will make me cry.
or was it Binks? Well, his sister came back. Anyways, these ghosts, so to speak, and you see them as a ghost, which is like, in my eyes, what Will was seeing them as. Like, he could see them, but other people couldn't. Like, he had the need to see them.
And then they appeared to these characters as they all needed them in different iterations, or related to them, or were there like,
Yes.
yeah, they
Like,
were
They needed them to physically exist in world and space to carry out their...
Correct. I think I was so overwhelmed by the end of the movie, and also just like the part where they're on...
fuck this, where'd the money go?
Well, yeah, because I had the cheesy issue at the end where they're like on the bridge and then they're not really there, and I just like throw my pen down and I look over at Kevin and I'm like,
it's because he was right.
But who did he write a check to? I don't understand.
Nobody.
I guess. I mean, yeah, there were things that were predictable, but then things that still went over my head. But I think that that's what makes it a great movie. It was predictable, but still like, wait, what? By the end. So, again, this movie is a lot more profound than Susan W. gave it credit for, and I hope you viewers, before we wrap up, that you give this movie a chance. But bring your tissues and be prepared to like possibly be in a mind fog afterwards.
Yes, at least you're going to one of the happiest places on earth. Buck right back up.
Oh my God. Yeah. And it's so funny. So my podcast room, when I record, I have two little bing bongs in the corner of my room. I have a mini Tsum Tsum bing bong and like a big bing bong.
Damn, you really like bing bong.
I know.
I'm a tchotchkes person. Behind me, there's Funko Pops. I've got bobbleheads in here, Lego sets, popcorn buckets, and cups. You don't ever really buy that kind of stuff.
I don't. But I'll be goddamned, when this came out, I wanted it so bad. Because I think, Inside Out,
We've talked about Inside Out multiple times too on this podcast. And brought Bing Bong down.
He does smell like cotton
It looks
candy.
like you're sniffing his
Well, his belly, he smells like cotton candy still. And I think that's because Bing Bong was this representation of your childhood, and your childhood shifting into what you were saying earlier, your teen years when you're like, no, Mom, I don't want to go to this thing with you. You want to do your own thing. And Bing Bong was this great representation of how your imagination and box narrows the older that you get. And then that part where he's just take her to the moon for me. It's oh my God. But yes, anyways, I'm really excited to feel that. I think as I maybe I'll cut this, I don't know, but as I explore my mental health and continuing to put in the work with therapy, which is I'm always a huge advocate for. I'm not ashamed of it. I talk very openly with coworkers and friends about it, regardless if they ask, because I don't think that it should be a stigma or something that someone should feel embarrassed about. But as a long-time therapy goer, finally making progress on filling that little child bucket and making that 7-year-old me happy is something that is good. And weirdly enough, watching Collateral Beauty was thinking about this concept of love, time, and death, of yeah, you never had enough time. You'll never have enough time with the people that you love, but did you have enough time to love yourself and take care of that person that you needed when you were younger?
Yeah. I mean, Will talked about that in an interview, kind of that, life, the most important things that you look back on are the people that mean the most to you, and those memories and stuff, and not much else, all the other frivolous stuff we tend to fuss about at the end of the day, or at the end of your life. It's more so was I a good person? Did I I had some great times with these people, or I'll always remember doing this with this person and those moments. So I probably need to go back to therapy. That's what I am receiving from this. So what a deep, sad way to end this podcast.
Yes, and honestly, I'm sorry, no snack and cocktail for me this week.
Yeah, I will just drown in the salty tears of my sorrows. And
I'll drown in the Chardonnay I was drinking while watching this.
Yeah. The diner food did look pretty good. I could eat at a diner by myself and cry in a booth.
Yeah, but it looks like he was eating a salad.
Was he?
It looked salad-ish.
Pity. Okay.
Pity. All right, let's wrap this shit up.
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to this week's episode, and to the people who stuck with us so far, please come back for another episode of the Safeway select version of Ayanla Fix My Life, apparently. Reflect on, or Dr. Phil for people who watch him.
But seriously, if you like us enough to stick around, take another deep dive down this IMDb rabbit hole with us. We promise that not every week will be as deep and sad as this one. We are kind of going to dig a little bit out of that dark tunnel, bringing it back next week when we talk about Will Smith in the 2017 movie Right.
Yes, Will's got good balance. He
sure does.
Hits us heavy, and then he's like, all right, take this action movie, this funny movie, like this blockbuster real quick. So looking forward to that. And that one's got like some controversial bad reviews. So I'm curious how we feel about that. But on that note, if you've got nothing better to do, go figure out a theme to watch a bunch of movies you've never seen.
I am your host and mental health advocate, Simone. Please subscribe to this blessed mess. Leave us a like if you're into it, and leave us a like. Leave the hashtag down below. Bing bong, baby.
And I'm your host, Bria, and I am also your mental health advocate, but also down in the trenches with you. I need to go get help myself. So if you relate, then you're not alone, baby. But it would be awesome for my mental health if you wipe your tears and take those fingers and go give us a review. Follow us at Roll Call Pod on Instagram, TikTok, and Problematic Twitter. Give us some likes. Give us some comments. Give me, some feedback. Give me your unsolicited. Well, we want your opinions, but your very random opinions that some people like to throw out there. Anyways, yeah, just light us up.
Back it up with your evidence.
Say whatever you want to say. And this has been another episode of
Roll Call.